Hey everyone, and welcome back to part 41 of my No Loss Impossible Mage playthrough of King's Bounty the Legend. Today is the day that I take on General Karador. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think it's inarguable that this is the toughest encounter to get through in the game. There's no bigger obstacle for a no-loss run, so I expect that I'll have some newcomers dropping into the playthrough. If that's you, welcome to the channel. For your sake, I'm going to give a full rundown of the build that I'm working with before I start the encounter, so let's dive into it. Starting with my gear, my priorities tend to be on intellect and attack. I brought my intellect all the way past 35, which means I have the additional spell power bonus 5 times over. I try my best to prioritize attack, but my gear will only take me so far. Defense is a far more common statistic, so it'll tend to be higher almost by default. There are 3 notable items that I want to draw attention to before we move on. First is Anga's Ruby. My endgame build relies on using female units as much as possible, because this ring will give them +3 to attack, defense, initiative, speed, and morale. If you're new here, don't underestimate the impact of this buff. It'll make my Dryads, Demonesses, and Sprites absolute powerhouses. Second is the Miner's Helmet. My strategy for Karador involves fighting at night, so this helmet will give an additional 20% bonus to attack. And last is the Paladin Shield. This will reduce the damage that I take from undead units, and Karador uses those exclusively. So this will save me from taking a whole lot of damage that I'd rather not take. Now as far as my army goes, I mentioned the Sprites, Dryads, and Demonesses, but I'm also using Emerald Green Dragons and Inquisitors. This gives me a team in which every unit has a means of doing no retaliation attacks, and everyone but the Inquisitors has high speed and initiative. I can use the Inquisitors to help resurrect my dragons or generate rage, and the dragons can help generate more mana, in conjunction with the rotation of rage draining from Reaper and chargers from Lena to get even more mana. Overall, this team allows me to use a lot of hit and run tactics, and make sure my mana reserves are topped off so that I can resurrect anything that takes damage before I end each fight. Moving on to my hero's build, I have Order Magic, Distortion Magic, Higher Magic, Destroyer, and Alchemy maxed out. Then I have 2 levels of Healer, Wisdom, and Chaos Magic. My staple spells include Haste, Slow, Phantom, Geyser, Bless, and Resurrection, so I haven't felt the need to get level 3 Chaos Magic yet. I haven't gone too far in the Mind Tree, even at this late date. I immediately went for Learning at the start of the game, and I just took the first level of Glory recently. There isn't much in this tree that I would consider essential to my build, so it's been mostly neglected. Tolerance might be nice later on since I have Demonesses in my party, but I'd call that an added bonus. And last but not least, I've taken a lot of the prerequisites in the Might Tree, but I also maxed out Rage Control, Master of Spirits, and Nighttime Operations. That last skill was essential to my strategy against Karador. I specifically waited until nighttime before I started this fight, because this will grant me 6 to attack and defense, in addition to the added bonus from my Miner's Helmet. All of these additional stats really stack up, and it'll make the fight a lot easier. With all of that said, there are a few recommendations I have for fighting Karador specifically. Number 1. Fight him at night. I brought it up before, but seriously, if you have any equipment that works better at night or against undead, use it. And make sure you max out nighttime operations. It doesn't take a lot of might runes to do, and you'll be glad that you did. Number 2, and this is the most important one, make sure you step on the corpses. If you haven't seen the fight, there's a crystal on the far side of the field that uses Necrocall every turn, in addition to Karador himself often doing the same. So use your units to stand on any corpse that you don't want to deal with again. Personally, I'll be using my Dryads to summon thorns on these spaces as much as possible, and the thorns can actually consume the corpse files when they plant their seeds. This will take away a lot of the potential targets for the Necrocall spell, and the fight will go much smoother that way. Number 3 is optional, but you can also use a nearby Fountain of Rage like I'm going to get an added boost at the start of the fight. Thanks for listening, everyone. Now let's fast forward to evening and I'll charge the castle. The first thing you're going to notice is that there really aren't that many units here, especially compared to the mobs that I've been facing lately. That's because the hero's stats push them well beyond their normal means, and as I've said before, both he and the Dark Crystal will be resurrecting these units throughout the fight. So don't be deceived, you'll probably have to kill far more than what's actually shown here. Now as for turn 1, my major priority is to bring down the skeleton archers, or they're going to do significant amounts of damage. I'll start off with a twin cast of Geyser because this will further soften the units, especially with all the extra spell power I stacked up with my recent build changes. After I teleport my dragons to Karador's side of the field, I'm going to move them into the corner. This will cause most of his units to chase after the dragons, blowing through their running abilities to do so. Karador also has a frustrating tendency to cast Fear, which is incredibly effective against my sprites. This will force me to dispel it, or watch as they chase after every skeleton on the field. In turn 2, I'll have to finish off the Bone Dragons and then take out the newly reborn Skeleton Archers. Underground Blades will take care of the Bone Dragons, as well as many of the other units, and then I'll step on the Dragon's corpse with my Demonesses and hit the Archers from there. This will free up my Dryads to plant thorns on top of the Archers. I also made a big mistake in this turn, and I came close to just restarting the fight because of it. I had it in my head for some reason that the zombies already used their running skill, so I messed up and placed my dragons too close to them. They took a big hit here, but I decided I could deal with it and just kept forging on. It's turn 3 and I have to start making up for my error. I'm going to start by blocking the Black Knights with my Demonesses because they'll be able to tank the damage better than my other units can. You might be thinking, why was I looking at Battle Cry here? Well, that's because if I moved my other units off of a corpse, my thorns wouldn't be able to get there in time to plant more of themselves, and Karador would just end up summoning them back. One other general note. There's a stack of necromancers that I'm choosing to leave alone because there are only 2 of them. They'll keep doing damage to me, but it's kinda negligible. Finishing them off would only cause them to revive even stronger, so they can wait until I've whittled down the other units. It's turn 4 and the barriers are gone, so I really need to start taking out the big stacks that remain. There are several melee units that can cause problems if I don't start bringing them down. I know the sprites can only target the skeletons, so I'm just going to let that ride. The dryads, however, I need to dispel the fear from. I'd like for them to start taking out the ghosts, even if it means a few dragons coming back. I was curious about how long it would take to just target the crystal, but it wasn't worth it, so I took out the archers instead. By turn 5, Karador's army is starting to lose its power, but it's not over yet. There's still a big stack of zombies and a big stack of Black Knights in the back. I should be able to handle the units that made it to the front line without taking too much damage, and I'm otherwise going to keep taking out weaker units when I can, because that will force Karador to use his mana on them instead of debuffing my army. I'm gonna make good use of my new Lifelight spell to move these zombies away from the sprites for another turn. I have no interest in tanking that amount of damage. It's turn 6, and I need to keep whittling down the Black Knights and the zombies in particular. Karador is still very intent on putting fear on my dryads and sprites, which is pretty frustrating, but ultimately not the end of the world. Killing this ghost means I'll be able to plant more thorns here, which takes care of both the ghosts and the dragons. Say goodnight, old friends. It's turn 7 now, and it's high time I start bringing back some of my units, because Karador's army is starting to break. Most of the zombies have been dealt with, and now it's time to do the same with that last stack of Black Knights. Once these guys are down to a manageable number, there's nothing left to be afraid of, really. By the end of turn 8, he'll be left with a small stack of Necromancers, a small stack of zombies, and around 50 Black Knights. Meanwhile, both my Demonesses and my Inquisitors have been brought back to full power already. By turn 8, Karador's army is just about finished, so over the next few turns my attention will move to generating enough mana to heal my units. Pretty soon, Karador will be stuck in an endless loop of trying to bring back units only for my army to gang up on them. They'll have no chance of putting up any real resistance, so I can focus on resurrecting anything that I lost. Whenever I do bring down one of the stronger units, I'll make sure to step on anything that I'd rather not deal with again. By turn 11, Karador has no units left, so I'm going to move my units on top of the strongest corpses he has available. If he wants to bring back some skeletons for me, I'm okay with that. After all, I'm going to need a target if I want to use rage draining. And while I'm waiting for mana, I'm going to use my Inquisitors to start damaging the crystal. Then, as soon as I have all the mana I need and everything's been resurrected, I'll just use my sprites to finish it off. That's it for Karador. He doesn't make it easy, but if you make the appropriate preparations, it can certainly be done. Now then, I also got a level for Zarok, and I'm going to take the cost reduction for Smashing Sword this time. There are very few units I care enough to block that wouldn't outdamage the wall, whether it was 300 or 600 hit points. I'm also going to pick up the Cloak of Shadows from his castle. If I ever have to use the nighttime strategy again, this could be useful. Seems like a sick joke that I found this after fighting Karador, but whatever. Now I get to take a victory lap. I've cleared most of this area and the main quest is done. I know for a fact that I'll have to come back here again later, so I'll just leave the scraps for then. Instead, I'll head to the Elven capital to speak with the Queen, and then I'll go talk to King Mark. I receive a new title for turning in Alinia's quest, which will give an extra 2,000 leadership. When the shop refreshes, I'll also get an incredibly good shield that grants 6 defense and an extra 50% resistance to attacks from dragons. I'm also going to put my experience boost back on, replacing my Cyclops Eye for the moment. I'm not quite level capped yet, so unless I'm struggling with a particular fight, I'd really prefer the extra experience. Thanks for joining me for this one. Karador's down, and now it's time for me to march my way through Demonis to get the portal key that will take me to the final zone. We're in the home stretch now. So as always, make sure you leave a like or comment to help boost the channel before you go, and consider subscribing to see similar content from me in the future. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.